Howdy Arabia, folks. Howdy Arabia. Sorry, I just had to do that. I couldn't resist. But I know for a fact that this weekend none of us will be able to resist the urge and the pressure to just watch the title fight unfold. And that is one of the 5 things that we're going to discuss on this episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits To Podium. This is the Saudi Arabian GP Preview, and you're listening to the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits To Podium. Let's begin. Hey folks, welcome back into the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits To Podium. My name is Soumil, Arora, the host of The Driving Force on Disney Plus Hotstar. And joining me is Kunal Shah, the former marketing head of the Force India F1 team. And seriously, Kunal, this is unlike any circuit that you would have ever seen in your time at Force India, or for that matter, any of us would have ever seen in our time as a Formula One fan. Because seriously, there's only one buzzword going around all the time. Speed, 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 and also construction delays. There's a little bit of that as well.
Yes, thank you for that, Soumil. Howdy, Arabia. Howdy, Soumil. Howdy, everybody. I thought, to me, I think the buzzword is going to be human rights, although they're not let you going to talk about it. And it's great that, Vettel and Hamilton and maybe even Mick Schumacher are doing what they're doing to represent equality. I know everybody has diverse views about it and so on, but yes, on a sporting side of things, high speed is definitely going to be the talk of the town. In fact, it already is. We're recording this on the Friday of the Grand Prix weekend. FP1 is just about underway, and F2 had delays and operational delays. And the funny thing here, Soumil, is Formula 2 is junior series, not just to prepare drivers for Formula 1. It's also to prepare circuits to host Formula 1 as well. So that's exactly what happened. Saudi Arabia failed the Formula 2 test, if I may call it that way. Of course, I'm being harsh. Circuit was, they started developing it just in May this year, and pretty cool how they've turned things around, Soumil, in such a short time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. How quickly can you build a Formula 1 circuit? But in a way, Kunal, it's making me wonder. A record time for a Formula 1 circuit to be constructed can also be read as record number of labor exploited to make a Formula 1 circuit. Again, it's a common thread around the Middle East. Think of it whatever you might like to, but it's a bit too quick, and often with circuits that are a bit too quick to be built up, Kunal, there are things that can be left aside. Maybe you can shed more light on that, because as you mentioned, F2 is still not able to race over here. Do you think anything like that will happen on the track? Because you can't afford any loose drain covers or maybe unready barrier parts, because they're going to be flying through those corners. What is it, like 270, 280 kilometer per hour through some of those corners? Some are even faster. It's crazy the amount of speed that they're going to carry, and the lack of runoff.
The lack of runoff, yes, and yeah, Soumil. But just so I know what you meant, but so that I'm correcting it for our listeners, right? Formula 2 just had FP that was delayed.
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess everything else is going to be normally scheduled as it would be so for the weekend. But fingers crossed that this circuit is complete. Fingers crossed that the certain barrier sections have been highlighted by a few drivers, that if you go in there, you're going in perpendicular, etc., etc. So fingers crossed that everybody has a safe time out there. And if there's anything that's delayed, like I remember the days of the Indian Grand Prix, it's okay if the flush systems and the WCs don't work for the first day when the teams arrive, or if they are clogged up with the plumbing systems there or something. That's at least manageable. But yes, exciting. I think the other buzzword that will be of the circuit is narrow. Lots of fast flowing sections, and we don't know how overtaking is going to be. We were all pleasantly surprised by it in Qatar, and we have 3 DRS zones in Jeddah. So let's see how even the overtaking quotient stacks up on Sunday.
3 DRS zones, a gajillion corners into one circuit, but call it whatever you might like to, Kunal, but just the place where it's constructed and the atmosphere that's come about, it is just tremendous. You've got to give it to them. It's right is right at the bay. I mean, the sea is in there. They've constructed, I think, an artificial water body inside the circuit as well. I mean, much like Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, but, more advanced, more modern, if you might like to call it that way. What are your expectations for this track, Kunal, all things considered? Because from the onboards, the only thing we can tell is, man, if anyone's going to have a shunt over here, that is going to be expensive. And that's the one thought going around everywhere.
Yes, and a shunt or an opening lap mistake, you nudge a competitor, you could have some, exciting moments that could, unfortunately, end up messing somebody's championship chances. And we've got championship battles for P1, for P3, for P5. I mean, in the drivers' championship itself. So let's hope it's clean. Let's hope people don't really do a Bottas in Hungary, if I may call it that way. And yes, the other thing, Saudi Arabia is clearly going for the fastest street circuit in the world. That kind of a tag. It's also the longest street circuit, 6.2 odd kilometers or something. So if you hit trouble at the start or the middle of of your circuit during a competitive session, it's a long way back to the pits in itself, right? So lots of factors that teams will learn, that fans will learn as every lap is driven around the Jeddah Corniche circuit, Soumil.
But what is that one part that excites you the most, Kunal? For me, personally, apart from just the spectacle of racing right next to the bay, which I've imagined with Mumbai a million times, and I'm sure most of you who are listening in India have also thought of something like that. But apart from that factor, Kunal, there's this one corner, and I don't know which one, and I guess you've got to excuse me for that because there are a million corners at the circuit. But there's this one corner coming in from the second straight, heading towards the third one. It's a fast left-hander, swoops in. You just have a second to turn in right hand and then back onto another straight. That one section really gets me. And the speed they'll be carrying in there, the way the barrier is so close, the onboards will be tremendous. But your thoughts on that, Kunal? Which corner excites you the most?
That corner actually reminds me of the final corner we used to have in Sepang.
Oh, yes.
Right. There's a back straight, you turn left, it's a bit of a hairpinish, and then you come onto the front straight. And that reminds me of Sepang, at least from how I remember the circuit maps. But there is something common between the designer who designed Sepang International Circuit and now the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. Of course, you guys know this, but yes, it is Tilke. But it's not Herman Tilke who's done Saudi Arabia. It's his son, Karsten, I think, if I remember the name correctly. He has actually designed Saudi Arabia. So Sepang was his father, Saudi Arabia is his son. And by the end of this weekend, I hope we don't have one more Tilke to not like so much. I hope this is a Tilke we really love, and we're like, go get a Tilke, go get Karsten Tilke to make the circuit, So but talking about the corner that's going to excite me the most is turn 13. It's got a 12-degree gradient and it's a banked corner. We know banking can trouble Mercedes from Sanford, at least that we remember. Different degrees of banking, but nevertheless. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, it'll allow for multiple lines through the corner. So maybe it'll spice up some racing. Maybe Fernando Alonso is going to be the one who'll spice it up, as he always does. And also a note to you and to all our listeners. Yes, there are a gazillion corners. It's 27 corners officially. Some of the corners are literally like a snake. You're turning left, turning right, turning left, turning right. And that's like, wow, I've been through 4 corners already, So I expect commentators, I expect pundits, I expect experts to also goof up what corner numbers and names and places drivers were at when certain things happened. So don't be too hard on yourself, guys.
And just give them a name. Just add something special like Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, Vale, Stowe. You remember those things, right? C24. Who's going to remember that one? But point is, Kimi Raikkonen came up into the Formula 1 interview booth today and said that the way to learn this circuit is really interesting. I mean, he didn't call it interesting. We think that it's interesting, or at least so I hope so. He said that to learn this circuit, you just have to brake between 150 meters and just guess whether it's a left-hand corner or a right-hand corner and just dive your way through, because that's how most of the corners are. And fun fact, it's actually not the only circuit in Saudi Arabia still being constructed for Formula One. There's another coming up outside of Riyadh as well, so they're probably putting in some money in there. But it's come at a good time, Kunal. It's come at a time where there's this big debate about the championship, 2 races left to go. I know it's been a slow build, and just like a very good biryani, a slow build ends up giving you the best finish at the end. And there's this debate about engines. Your thoughts on the engine thing? Red Bull might just be taking another one.
I think that's probably Helmut Marko just playing with everybody. That's my reading. But yes, the penalty for taking a fifth ICE is just 5 places on the grid. So even if they choose to do that, it's a strategic penalty that they would call it. So, Toto Wolff called Max Verstappen's driving in Monza with over Lewis Hamilton a tactical foul. Now they're all doing strategic fouls, if you ask me. They're of course misusing a rule that they themselves wrote down for taking the fifth ICE. But yes, engines, that's always the talk of the town. And I liked how Helmut Marko said, we are not taking one in Saudi, but we might take one in Abu Dhabi, which just sounds extremely strange. Maybe he's just playing with everybody. But I think the other thing at the back of the Red Bull is what everyone's eyes are going to be on, which is the DRS wing. And, the rear wing in itself, Red Bull were troubled through the triple header. In fact, they've been troubled several races of the year. Could they have, sorted it out now that they had an extra weekend to play things around with? Of course, they can't solve it because, it needs a token and they don't have any more tokens for 2021. So could they have found a temporary fix, which is better than just putting duct tape on it? God knows. But yes, that's going to be the thing I'll sort of look forward to. And then Lewis is bringing his Brazil spec spicy engine back into the mix. So talks have been, about the same performances, because Lewis has had almost a 4/10, more than a 4/10 gap in qualifying in Brazil and then in Qatar. So will that trend continue? And then likewise, depending on which drivers' camps you read news from, there was this talk that Honda was holding back some power from Max's engine to release more of that in the next 2 races. So it all depends who you sort of want to win, or believing will win, will have the better package. And actually, there's one more stat which will come up, right? Lewis Hamilton has won 7 out of 10 night races. Ooh. That's the stat that came up in the week building up to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So that was what that came up. And then the Max Verstappen camp actually put up saying Max has won 2 out of 2 street races in 2021. So now it's about who's won a street race that was held at night. And that's what we'll know on Sunday.
Has he won 2 out of 2 though? Because last I remember, he didn't really win at Singapore, did he? So there was that.
No. It was Monaco and then Baku. Of course, Baku he crashed.
Okay, in 2021. In 2021. Okay, yes.
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, my word. I love how spicy it's getting between the two of them. And there's talk about the engine, talk about the wing, talk about so much more. But even momentum, Kunal. It's Hamilton's first title chasing since 2016. And the last time we were in this situation, there was the famous "oh no" quote after his engine failed in Malaysia. Not saying anything like that should happen or will happen, knocking on wood. I want to see a clear fight. But we've seen that this is a situation that Lewis hasn't quite been in very often. And I mean, unfortunately for Max, he hasn't been in this case as well. So uncharted territory here as well. Who do you think the momentum really is on the favor of? Because after last weekend, one might be compelled to say Lewis, but there's a good gap over there. Only 18 points that Max needs to overscore Lewis. So either way, no?
Well, I think the momentum is in Formula One's way, Soumil, because, each time we think, oh my God, Lewis will be the one under pressure. He's going and attending charity galas somewhere around the world. Then we think, okay, Max would be worried. He's been outraced 2 races in a row. He didn't have the package to respond. And then what does Max do? He sits on a sim race session, goes and has some fun with his mates on chat during the session and so on. So I think the two drivers are definitely not the ones who'll be bothered about momentum. But you're absolutely right about the fact that Lewis hasn't really chased the title since now. It's 4 years, if we were to count this as the fifth. And then Max Verstappen hasn't really won a title, even in junior formulas. So lots of first times happening, and it's exciting to see how two different personalities are sort of able to deal with the same levels of pressure. And of course, when I say same levels, it's different, but in the
Yeah.
same moments of pressure.
Actually, Kunal, I'm going to ask this question to you for the first time this year. I cannot believe it's been 20 or 19 odd races. I've lost count. That since March, essentially, the first time we're asking this on the podcast, who's winning the title, Kunal? Now is the time. Who do you think gets it?
I think Max Verstappen is going to get the title. That's just my feeling. It will be in Abu Dhabi. I think F1 is doing all they can to make it in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, that's just the gut feeling. I think let's address this whole thing about engines and
Yeah.
should Mercedes take a new one, should Red Bull take a new one. I think it's also not fair that we are attributing engine changes to Lewis's rise in performance.
Yeah.
He is the challenger. He has to pull out something. Especially he did that in Brazil and in Qatar. You may or may not like Lewis Hamilton, but that's what he did. Okay. Uh, was it only down to the engine? Absolutely not. I just think Mercedes has found something really interesting in their setup, which is what Lewis is able to dig into and deliver his hammer time performances from. And that said, Red Bull has lost time not just to Mercedes but to the field overall as well. So that's just the timing of when this has happened. At some point, both the packages had to peak, and maybe Red Bull's package has peaked, and now they're just hoping that the cushion that Max has built on Lewis just helps him through till the end. And who knows if it's the point for the fastest lap that will decide the title.
Or the points, because they've desperately been working on that for so many months now. And it all adds up. What, 20 odd points for fastest laps throughout the season? That's a ton. But that's Kunal's prediction. I know all of you folks listening are biting your lips at the thought of this challenge coming up. I am going to go for Lewis. Not for the sake of diversity, although Lewis Hamilton diversity, yeah, that kind of gels in well. But I think his performances are just too good and he can make up that deficit. But hey, it's not the be all, the end all, right? Even if I say Lewis or Kunal says Max, it doesn't mean that it's going to be exactly that. So just wait and watch to see which one of our predictions work out well. But constructors, Kunal, the things are a little bit more unpredictable. I mean, if you can call it that way, because you're also relying on another set of drivers to do their job properly. And that's something that's been very on and off. I mean, that's been the trend with both Red Bull's second driver and Mercedes' second driver. And Bottas now with a puncher in Qatar. Perez's form always being AWOL, if you can call it that way. This, I think, from an excitement perspective, ran second. But from the unpredictability aspect, this has to be the number one battle of the year. And who knows where Red Bull versus Mercedes is going to go, especially after the barbed wire shots that both Toto Wolff and Christian Horner are hitting to each other every week.
I think they're going to write to each other at least two more times in the year, like we did the Wolf and Horner show episode just a few days ago. But to my mind, Soumil, this is not the most exciting after Max and Lewis. And I'll come to what's the most exciting. Okay. Mm-hmm. But yes, Perez versus Bottas, battle for the Constructors' Championship between Red Bull, Mercedes. Very, very exciting to see what happens. For example, since the race in Turkey, Checo Perez has scored 19 more points than Valtteri Bottas. So he's sort of, turned his deficit around, and we don't know how's it going to be for P3 in the Drivers' Championship as well. So coming to the battle, which for me is most exciting, is P5 in the Drivers' Championship. Lando Norris being chased by Carlos Sainz Jr. and Charles Leclerc. And the gap between Norris and Leclerc is just 1 point. And I think Sainz is another 7 or 8 points away and a half, whichever the number is. Sainz is going to be that 0.5 extra away or closer.
Ooh, this is crazy. You know what? If they tie, don't go and count back. Just set up a virtual F1 2021 race at Vietnam, of all places, just so that we get to see a race there at least once and see which one of which one of Leclerc or Norris will be the faster one. I mean, it's crazy, right? Two of the younger generation fighting for P5 definitely don't deserve to be P5 considering how their talents are. But this is crazy. But I think I'm going to just make a prediction day today. Your thoughts on who ends up winning this, Kunal?
I would say Leclerc gets it. Although if McLaren's Monza pace and form is anything to go by, okay, don't rule out McLaren for this weekend's Grand Prix. It's low drag, low downforce, the kind of setup it works. Daniel Ricciardo needs he very badly needs a good result. So I think McLaren, Lando Norris, they'll be in the mix of things today. And can they pull out a bit of a gap? Let's remember, just 2 races remain. And if it's advantage McLaren in Saudi Arabia, it's almost 50-50 as to, which circuits might suit which of the teams out there, Soumil.
Yeah, exactly. And Kunal, before we move on to a word about Williams and their weekend, what about Gasly? What about AlphaTauri? We discussed in depth in the last episode about where their pace went. But street circuit, common knowledge would say that if you qualify up here pretty well, I think you can maintain a good position. So stars could be aligning in a way.
It could be, qualifying, track position, all of that will be very important. DRS trains, we will see drivers wanting to give DRS and slipstreams and all the regular stuff. But yes, Pierre Gasly, he has single-handedly brought AlphaTauri in the P5 battle with Alpine. He may not be able to get them the P5, but just what he's done is incredible. And but before we move on, Soumil, you haven't told me your prediction for the Norris, Leclerc, and Sainz battle. I saw that for P1 we have different choices. Do we have different choices for P5 as well?
No, I think I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc here as well. Now, I just can't bet against him considering how things are going right now. I want to be proven wrong though. I want to see a good fight in this case. And maybe Sainz doing something extraordinary, maybe some bad luck involved, who knows. That'll be fun as well, considering how good of a year he's had and how many good results were taken away from him through no fault of his own. I mean, Sochi comes to mind, right, where the car just wasn't there, but his driving was impeccable. I want to see him do pretty well in that case. So, yeah, here is a really good fence-sitting prediction. Thank you so much. I'll teach you the art of that later on. But Williams, Kunal, before we wrap up, we unfortunately couldn't quite talk about Sir Frank in the last episode that we recorded about Toto Wolff and Christian Horner. But really, even though the family may not be involved in the team right now, it has to be such an emotionally charged weekend for them, right? Considering how big of a leader he was to the team, more of an inspirational figure in terms of how he set up the team, because he wasn't quite managing it to this day, but it's quite something, isn't it? The legacy he's left behind and how there's only good things to speak about him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm always at a loss of words because Sir Frank was so phenomenally inspiring for his on-track as well as off-track pursuits. And when I say on-track, of course, not when he was racing, but when he was running Williams as he did, and then his crash and so on. And very, very motivating, I would say. And somehow, life always has a way of sort of showing us some, connections, if I may put it that way. So one of the first few global sponsors to sponsor the Williams racing team back in the 70s was the Saudi airline, which is the national airline of Saudi Arabia, and then several other sponsors that came in. And guess what? Sir Frank passed away just in the week of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as well. So iconic, most definitely. People usually speak of Enzo Ferrari for what he's done with Ferrari as a brand, as a company, as a team in general. But so Frank Williams, of course, had his own path, had his own has his own legacy, and I'm sure Williams racing in itself. I really hope that Doralton Capital keeps up the name just to commemorate the awesome career that he had and the awesome presence he's had in the world of Formula One.
Just plucky, right? Not totally innovative, 100%. I mean, when someone of this caliber ends up passing away, you often end up throwing words like, "Oh, inspirational, innovative, revolutionary." But he wasn't that. He was just very gritty, and that's what the Williams team was in the mid '80s and the mid '90s. Very gritty, just kept on fighting through, and eventually, I mean, you saw the amount of world champions they've produced. But I was just thinking about it in the midweek. What if we had that Saudi livery come back for this weekend? It would be tremendous. But tremendous things are around the corner all the way through. I hope you like this episode, and I also hope that you have a good time watching the championship battle till the end of the year, which is essentially in 14 days. So have a good time with that, folks. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode, Kunal. This was really a lot of fun. And I hope to see you guys on Monday morning when we review the Saudi Arabian GP and see how it went. The track will be complete, by the way, so don't worry about it. But how it went and who finally has the upper hand heading into Abu Dhabi. This will be fun. See you, folks.
Thank you, Soumil. See you guys. Bye bye.